I keep being told that I should carry on working for a couple of years before I retire. Now, I've decided to retire next year when I'm 55. But people keep telling me that I need to work for a couple more years to build up my pension pot because it's not enough. Well, I disagree. In this video, I want to explain why. There seems to be a bit of a myth going around that you have to get £1 million before you can retire. And this comes over from the US. The US financial planning industry focus on getting $1 million and then drawing down 4% of that $1 million every year, leave it invested, and then it should last you until you die, basically, after you retire. What they've done is they've translated that over to the UK, and a lot of UK financial planners do the same. But all they've done is they've taken the dollar off and just put a pound sign in front of it, not taking into account differences in cost of living, difference in healthcare costs. For instance, the NHS here is free, and other factors like that. The 4% drawdown is based on the £1 million pot because they look at about over 30 grand drawdown every year, being a mediocre lifestyle or a median lifestyle, which is 5 holidays a year, eating out regularly, all that kind of thing. Now, I can't remember the last time I ate out, and that's in a 3-bedroom house in the UK. We cook all our own meals. Sometimes we might buy a ready meal, but that's about the extent of it. So living on less, it's all subjective, really, isn't it? It depends on your own circumstances. I've got friends who eat out all the time. They eat out, they drink out. I don't drink, I don't smoke, don't have any vices as such. I've got neighbours opposite us who literally order gusto. I didn't even know what that was until I see all these boxes stacked up outside their house every week. They're ordering stuff in because they obviously can't cook, or they can afford that kind of lifestyle. What I do know is that I can probably live the rest of my life without ever having to resort to gusto. So I wanted to clear up a couple of other misconceptions as well. I've been doing some research on some ONS figures, Office of National Statistics. So apparently the median salary in the UK is over 37.5 or nearly 37,500, £37,430 a year. Well, I don't know actually that many people on that salary, and when you look into it, there was a YouGov survey that was done albeit it was 2019, so things may have changed a little bit since then, but I don't think it's changed drastically. 21% of workers were earning more than 30,000 a year. 21%. So 79% of people in the UK at the time of that survey in 2019 were earning less than 30,000 a year. But the median salary would lead you to believe, the ONS figures, that everybody's on a 37,000 a year average. If you talk about this £1 million pension pot, if you were on a £37,430 a year salary and you worked for 39 years, and I've based that on retiring at 57, which is when the new, if you're an 18-year-old now and you work for 39 years till you're 57, you probably won't be able to access your pension pot until well after that, but that's what it is at the moment. Then you would earn in your lifetime just under £1.5 million. So in the meantime, you've got to try and save to get your pension pot up to £1 million as well. Based on that, the average investment return is about 8% over the last 5 years. Now, I've had people saying to me, don't factor any gains whatsoever. The market's going to crash, you're not going to earn any money. Don't have your money invested in the stock market. Don't have it in a bank account. Don't have it in a SIP. Don't have this, don't have that. What do these people do then? Stuff it under the mattress? That's really old school, isn't it? And a lot of good that is if your house goes up. Lots of, I'm sure, well-meaning advice I'm getting from viewers on the channel, but a lot of it amounts to complete BS and totally impractical, and it's generally from what I believe are people who are just brainwashed into the system, brainwashed to think the way the government likes you to think. Stay in PAYE, be a good citizen, pay your rent or get yourself a mortgage, pay your taxes. I did another search on cost of living. So the average cost of living is about £1,732 a month, and that includes rent. So you're looking at rent for anything up to £1,600 a month or £1,200 a month. I think it is average for rent these days. Poor young people. I don't know how they're going to manage. But that's based on groceries for a single person, food shopping, £31 a week. You're having a laugh. £31 a week you'd starve to death, literally. I've allocated for living in the caravan of £300 a month groceries. I've even put in £400 a month just to be sort of overly cautious. That's for just the two of us. I think £31 a week is not reality at all. So, if we're led to believe that, the average working person is, or the median working salary is just under 37,500 a year. So what about all the food banks? What about all the people that are on universal credit? Let's have a look at those figures. I haven't actually researched those figures, but I bet you they're pretty high. Where people are earning, but they're working, but they're getting the benefits to top up because their salary is not enough to pay the bills. When I saw that, the average salary is 37 grand, I thought, well, we obviously don't have a problem in this country. Everyone's loaded, everyone's minted, no problem at all. But then, what do you see when you look on TikTok, on Facebook, on YouTube, on the news, on newspapers, everywhere? You see cost of living is causing nightmare problems for people. So when I see stuff like that, I know that we're doing the right thing, and what we're doing is we're retiring on a lot less than $1 million. I'm confident that I can get a good return on my savings, and I'm confident that it will last until we get state pension, which hopefully will be a lot more then than what it is now. I've had a lot of people saying there won't be a state pension. Well, in that case, we're all knackered, aren't we? Totally. It won't be just us in that situation then, will it? It'll be everybody. Because there's a lot of people who have no private pension, no personal pension. I know that because I've heard from a lot of you. So we're very, very fortunate, I think, to have what we have got, and that's why we have to do this now. Another thing is health. If you walk down the high street, and now I don't go to many other high streets, or haven't been for a little while, but I walk down my local high street, which is in the southeast, and we get a lot of Londoners come down, a lot of DFLs come down and visit for the day, and a lot of people are buying up properties in our area. Which is also putting prices up for everybody else. You walk down the high street, if you were to take a photograph of the I should probably do this one day, take a photo of the high street and then pick out how many healthy people there are. I bet you it would be easier to count how many healthy looking people there are than unhealthy looking people. There's a lot of people who are very, very large or round. Now you don't see many people who are very large and very round who are very old at all, do you? And it's not because they've suddenly lost all that weight, it's because they don't make it that long. So if you were to go to Aldi, for instance, or even Sainsbury's, and have a look around at all the shoppers and look at the health, the general health, which you can get an idea from the size of people, I think there's a lot of people that aren't going to make it. Now I've got a little bit of a gut on me, but I'm generally healthy, fit and active, and certainly not as large as a lot of people that I see my age. I know this all sounds a bit brutal and I don't want to offend anyone, but at the end of the day, I've got to do this now before things start getting more difficult to exercise and more difficult to keep the weight off and everything else. The pressure on your heart is immense. As a couple of viewers have said, the decade, especially for men, from 50 to 60 is the most dangerous decade for all sorts of reasons. One that I alluded to in a previous video. You only have to look at the stats of what the biggest killer for men under 50 is. It's frightening. It's very frightening. So I think we've been in a fortunate position. When I came out of my full-time job in 2016, and I've been self-employed ever since. Being self-employed, your income goes up and down all over the place, and I've had to be entrepreneurial sometimes to sort of get income from other places to get enough money to pay the bills, and that kind of teaches you to live on a very low budget, and it's quite possible to live a pretty decent life on a low budget. I've still managed to do loads of different hobbies, including paragliding, scuba diving, boating, all sorts of other stuff that I can't remember now. But things are just getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and luckily we're in a position in a few months' time where things are no longer going to be tight anymore. We'll have no debts whatsoever. No, oh really? And maybe it's easier for us. When I was working for a high street bank as a bank manager, and I was earning quite good money. I was on, probably with benefits, everything up to maybe 50k a year, and we didn't have to really worry about money at the time. And I know that it was difficult for me to transition from there to being self-employed, but I wanted to get away from the stress. The stress was going to be the killer for me, and that's why we're doing what we're doing now. So transitioning to self-employment, which is what I've done, and reducing my overall stress, although there's still bills to pay and everything else, it's nowhere near as stressful as it was. I've got a lot more free time. on my hands. I can work when I want to. I can take days off when I need to, and there's been plenty of that. Whereas before, you used to literally have to beg a boss to take a day off, beg someone to take some time off. I remember even getting a phone call from a fellow colleague who'd been asked to by my line manager when I was at the bank. I got a phone call in the south of France. I was on holiday. I was on my 2 weeks annual leave, and I got a phone call. It literally took me nearly all the 2 weeks to get rid of the stress and actually start to relax on holiday before I had to come home again. And I'm down there and I get a bloody phone call from a colleague saying I've got to work that Saturday. And obviously I told him where to go and told him I was on holiday. But maybe it was a wind up by my boss, but the stress that caused me, it nearly caused me a heart attack. It really did. Glad that's all, water under the bridge. So now, moving from self-employment, which is where I've got a lot more free time on my hands, moving into being a bit of a nomadic lifestyle, maybe touring France, maybe looking at buying a property in France, and all the options are on the table, but I won't have any debts, I won't have the mortgage, I won't have the house, I won't have anywhere near the outgoings. So yeah, absolutely we can do this on my pension alone and whatever we get for the property. Absolutely we can do that. We don't need £1 million in the bank. I certainly don't need anywhere near that in the bank, but that's the lie that people have sold you, that you have to live this high life, because they want you spending money in retirement, don't they? Otherwise you're useless to the government, you're useless to the system. If you just go off and be independent and you're not relying on anybody and you're not spending massive amounts of money, then you're useless. You're only useful to the system when you're working and earning and paying taxes and buying loads of crap that you don't need and getting cars on finance payments and buying mortgages and all this sort of stuff. You're only useful when you're doing all of that. So that's why they're trying to push people towards retiring later and later and later, and then even the financial advisors are in on it. They're in on it because they're telling you, oh, you can't really retire without £1 million. It's all rigged to make you continue to pay into the system. And I know a lot of people won't like this, but I really don't care, because I know that's how it is, and we're breaking out of it. And unfortunately, you get resistance when you try to break out of anything. You're taught, bearing in mind, the brainwashing's pretty good. You're taught from birth to, go to school, you go to nursery, you go to school, and then you're taught that you get a good job and you be nice to people and all this sort of thing. Society they've built this thing up, ever since the kings and queens ruled the land and the peasants, and if you broke out of the system, you were chained up in a dungeon. You had the threat of being shoved in a dungeon if you didn't do what they told you to do. And it's just translated into today, where you might have supposed human rights laws and employee protections and all this sort of rubbish. It's none of it. It's all a veneer to keep you feeling that you're safe in that system. And as soon as you try to break out of it, all the brainwashed people that are so institutionalized and have never experienced any kind of breakout will resist. And that's why we're getting a lot of flack for what we're doing. I'm getting flack from people I don't even know on the channel, but I see it for what it is. It's jealousy, it's people that are confused, it's people who can't do what we're doing for whatever reason, but the overall majority of comments that I do get, and this is what I'm trying to focus on going forward, are from people who have either done it and have absolutely no regrets. Every single person that's done it has no regrets, or they're people that wish us well and understand it. They get it, or they're in a really good place and they don't have any major issues with their life and they're happy in themselves, and that's why they are capable of being pleasant. You only have to just drive down to your local shops and see the aggression in people out there driving around, and that plays out on the roads, it plays out in queues, it plays out online, it plays out everywhere. There's a lot of very, very unhappy people out there, and we don't want to be one of them. So all I can say is, look, as far as I'm concerned, you don't need £1 million to retire. You absolutely don't. We were a family of 4. We were on a high income once for a brief period of time, but the majority of our working lives, we've been living very, very frugally and getting by just fine, without gusto or takeouts or meals out every 5 minutes. if you're new to the channel and you're not sure what we're doing, my plan is to retire. My wife is 60 this year, I'm 55 next year, and we're looking to both completely stop working. We're going to sell our property, just sell everything, get rid of everything, dump what we can't sell, put all the pot together into my pension drawdown, which is my pension at the moment is about 150k. It's actually a bit more than that now, and then live a life on the road until we buy a property in France, and then we're going to move to France. That's the general main plan. If we can't get a visa, then we'll have to work some other work around. Simple as that. But we're doing it while we're both in very good health, and we want to see some of those golden years, if you like, in good health, rather than waiting until we're not in good health but we have more money behind us to do nothing because we can't do it because of our health, if that makes sense. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. If you fancy following that journey, or you're interested in just watching to see us succeed or fail, either or, subscribe to the channel please. Really helps to let YouTube know that we're doing the right thing too. And also, for those that want to support the channel further, we have a membership option where there's two membership options basically, where you can get early access to videos and also some behind the scenes content and some other stuff as well. But you can check that out in the description. In the meantime, I really appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next video.